building a better Bay Area, moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC7 after the Warriors parade. Now, we are going to ask experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, we're going to dive into the decision by the International Swimming Federation voting to restrict transgender athletes from competing in elite women's competitions. A sports writer from the New York Times will be joining us to discuss that in about 10 minutes. Also, the Obama Portraits Tour is making its San Francisco debut at the DeYoung Museum. The official portraits of the former president and first lady are on display. The curator of the exhibit will be here in about 20 minutes to tell us all about it. But first, indeed, it's a Dub Nation celebration. San Francisco is gold-blooded today as the city celebrates the Warriors' 4th NBA championship in 8 years. But the first one on this side of the bay. The parade wrapped up just a short time ago. It brought a lot of attention to downtown San Francisco, especially Market Street. But is it just a one-day shine, or will there be a lasting boost for the city? Joining us live now to talk about that is Kevin Carroll, the president and CEO of the Hotel Council of San Francisco. I see you got the proper cap on there, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
Definitely.
I mean, it is a winning day. It was so exciting to see. I mean, not just for the fans, but I know it's important for businesses. But first, let's talk about how many people we think were at the parade. Did you have any estimates yet?
I don't know. It seemed like a lot of people. I'm probably not the best to estimate crowds, but I was at Powell and Market, and all I could see in every direction were people out here enjoying the parade. And it was kind of a fun way to start off the week, that's for sure.
Totally. We hope to get those estimates from San Francisco police soon, but we know it's a lot of people, and we know it's a lot of people spending a lot of money, too. Let's talk about what types of businesses might have gotten a boost today. You know, hotels, restaurants, who else? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when someone comes and stays in a hotel, which we did see a boost this weekend and overnight for people getting ready for today, it helps everybody, small businesses, restaurants, even taxis and other attractions. People come into the city, they're going to enjoy the parade, but now I walked up Powell Street with hundreds and hundreds of people that were going to either shop, eat, head out to some of the attractions. So it helps across the city, and it also keeps people working and brings people back to work. So it's a great day for the city, that's for sure.
You're right. People need to eat. Even NBA champions, even the Warriors. Did you see the one of Draymond Green buying ice cream at a local ice cream shop, I think, on Market Street? It was kind of crazy. Can you imagine Draymond Green just walking into your shop and saying, give me a double scoop?
You know, people have to eat, and I think it shows just how connected the team is with the local market, the people. And to see him walk into a store and buy something, that's pretty amazing. That store will remember it, and definitely the people that were around there. It was really fun to see people in the crowds. When you would see the players come by, people just start screaming and yelling, and kids jumping up and down. So it's all great. It's great for us and for the city.
Kevin, look, there it is. NBA on ESPN tweeted this, our sister network ESPN. This is hilarious. But I want to ask you, do you have any estimates yet on the financial impact? Can you put a dollar amount on the effect of this parade yet?
Not yet, but I will say as soon as the parade was announced after the win, our hotel started getting calls for people looking for rooms coming into the city, like I said. So we will get some numbers, but we just don't, it's too soon to know right now. But it's safe to say it'll have a significant impact on the city, not just our hotels, but the city as well. And like to your point, people have to eat, they have to do other things when they're here. They're taking transportation to get here. So it should be I can't wait to hear the numbers.
Right. I wonder if it's been hard for the restaurants and the hotels to staff up for today to handle the extra volume, because as we've been reporting as well, there's been a labor shortage, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, when you have a 4-day notice or 5-day notice that there's going to be a big parade, hotels are starting to be able to bring back people, which is incredible. We're seeing stronger business. But yes, staffing issues are a concern. And I think it's something that all of our businesses are dealing with right now.
Right. And of course, you know, the unknown is, you know, all the people, all the life we saw on Market Street today in the financial district area. Can that be sustained, right? And I know there are many pieces that need to be in place so that it's not just a one-day thing. Can you talk about what needs to happen so that we get, you know, the momentum and keep it going?
I think definitely getting people back to work and back into the offices will help. We're starting to get some conferences back and business travelers coming back to the city. So if offices have more people in them, more people are traveling to come in for meetings in the office, that's going to help us. I think the other thing that really has an effect is when this world is watching today's parade, it's really showcasing the city. So even during the games, the playoffs, the finals, there's a lot of attention given to the city, and people can see how beautiful San Francisco is. And that will help with the lasting effect as well, because more and more people are starting to plan to travel. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to come to San Francisco and enjoy this city that's celebrating the Warriors today.
Yeah. Look, one thing that cameras generally don't show, because it's not generally what you think of to show, is that there are still a lot of empty storefronts, especially on Market Street, right? Look, lots of reasons for it. You know, the pandemic is one. And as you mentioned, office workers, they need to fully come back, right? Because that'll support those businesses. But another aspect has been some of the challenges the city has faced in terms of crime or homelessness, or just not being very clean in some areas. Can you talk about, you know, how your group might be working with the city and what you hope the city will do?
Absolutely. We've been working very closely with the city on everything that helps welcome people to San Francisco. And it's not just for the people coming to visit, it's for our employees as well. They're concerned, they want to make sure that they feel safe coming to work. So the Hotel Council has been doing a lot of work with advocating for the SFPD budget, for budgets to help with clean and safe ambassadors in San Francisco. And like anything, it's going to take more than one thing to help a city. We are a major urban market, like most urban markets in the nation, and getting the help that we need is something the city's focusing on. We know the mayor's putting a lot of efforts together. She's doing a lot of work to make things happen in San Francisco, and we're fully supporting those efforts as well. And also the efforts of the police department to get the budgets they need to be able to make sure that they're out in force. Yeah.
Now, recently, the voters in San Francisco also voted to recall the district attorney. Your group has been on record before saying that a different approach is needed. What is that approach?
Well, absolutely. I think we need to make sure that people are accountable. And so if people are committing crimes, our organization wants to make sure that they are being held accountable. I think that's, you know, just a logical way of looking at it, that if you're going to come to our city and do something that's not illegal, that you're going to be able to be held accountable. And we think that working closely with the police department, the district attorney, the city, to make sure that our city is the safest city as possible is very important to us as an industry. And not, like I said, not just for our visitors, but for our employees as well. A lot of them live in San Francisco and work in San Francisco, and we want to make sure they feel safe as well.
Right. Look, in terms of the working in San Francisco part, you know, even though a lot of companies are starting to bring people back, a lot of times it's not 100%. It could be 60% or 40%, right? So you are still losing the 40% of lunch money being dropped. And as such, does tourism become more important perhaps? And do you have a plan to expand that portion of the revenue sector?
You know, it's a great question. If you look at our business, let's say the hotel and tourism industry, about a third of it's from tourism, before COVID, a third from conventions, and a third from business travelers. And how that pie is made up is probably shifting somewhat now. What we're seeing is the tourism return. So we've seen local tourism during COVID. Now that we're coming out of it, and now that the restrictions are lifted internationally, we're seeing and hearing a lot more foreign tourists. And even out work on Union Square, I hear Germans speaking German, Italian, French. We're seeing more of that. So that'll start to build back. We're starting to get some conferences back. And then we really need that business traveler as well, because what will happen is our weekends might be very busy because of tourism, but then the midweek falls off when traditionally that's when our business travelers will be there.
Right.
It'll come back. It's going to be different. To your point, I think many buildings and offices have learned they can operate different. And so that's where you may see people working 3 days a week in the office, and then it'll have to be made up in another way. But it's going to be several years before we're fully recovered as an industry, a tourism industry.
Well, in the meantime, more marquee events and more championship parades could not hurt. So let's hope that keeps going. Warriors got great odds.
I'm sorry, I agree. It's anything that's bringing excitement, and there is so much going on in this city. So the Warriors win, the Warriors games, the Giants games, all of those help introduce people to San Francisco. And we're ready, and we want more people to come back, and we're ready for them.
All right, Kevin Carroll, the president and CEO of the Hotel Council of San Francisco. We know you'll be retiring from this role shortly, but we are glad to be able to have this conversation with you before that happens, as you've led the group for a decade or so. So thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thanks so much. And take care.
All right, and our coverage of the Warriors Championship Parade continues on our website. Go to abc7news.com and check out all the big moments and see anything you may have missed. You want to stay with us because Getting Answers will be right back after the break. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Huge news in the debate over transgender athletes, a debate that reached a feverish pitch this year because of University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas. The world body that governs swimming, FINA, has just decided trans women who had undergone male puberty may not compete in women's events. Joining us live now to discuss the ruling and the reaction is New York Times sports reporter Matthew Futterman. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, give us a little more details on the ban specifically. After all, puberty is kind of a long process. So talk about any age criteria they set up and any other details that would help people understand exactly what they decided.
Well, look, it's complicated and it very quickly gets down into the weeds. But basically what you have is a situation where the rule is, and I'm just going to refer to, for the moment, just referring to men who transition to become women and trying to become eligible for international competition. And in order to be eligible for international competition, they would have had to begun that transition before they went through in one of the early stages of puberty or reach the age of 12, whichever comes later. So if you go through this early stage of puberty at 8 years old, you're not required to have transitioned by the time you were 7 years old. You still have until you're 12 years old. And by the same token, if you don't go through that early stage of puberty, and this all has to be documented by doctors and documents, and we're talking about years of examinations that would have to have taken place. But if you don't go through that stage of puberty until you're 14, say, then you won't have to have transitioned or begun transitioning by the time you're 11 or before 12. That's basically what it boils down to.
All right. Of course, this is an ongoing debate, but this process was really sparked by Leah Thomas, as we mentioned, the Ivy League swimmer who put up some huge times in the pool this year. Can you talk about what her situation was that prompted both people who said, some people who said this is just unfair, including some teammates, although many other teammates were very supportive, and also the other side of the debate? Kind of explain the crux of the issue there.
Well, I mean, Leah Thomas followed the NCAA rules, which was to be going through going through the process of transitioning and taking medication. There's different periods of time for different sports and for different at different levels, and having to go. And so she went through the beginnings, went through these stages of transition, and followed the NCAA rules and was allowed to compete. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're talking about the international rules, what they have done in order to sort of not circumvent but avoid that situation is they're siding with the scientists who say that if you go through a certain stage of male puberty, the benefits you gain are lifelong and irreversible. So no matter what drugs
cannot go away, even if you suppress male hormones or take female hormones, even if you do that for a long time, they're saying those are lasting advantages, right? Like what?
Yeah, you'll have lasting advantages. You'll have grown already. You'll have muscle mass. You'll have a lot of the characteristics that men have that women don't. And I'm speaking in generalities here. Everything is a spectrum. So we're trying to talk about in generalities about, generally men mm-hmm. are taller and stronger, have more muscle mass, things like that, broader shoulders. And, those can provide advantages to you regardless of whether you are suppressing male hormones, starting when you're 18 or 19 or 22.
So can I ask you, in making this move, FINA also created a new category, right? An open category. Does this satisfy most, if not all, the parties here?
No, I think I certainly don't think it satisfies most of the people I'm hearing from in the transgender community, mm-hmm. because these are people that say, and we're talking again about transgender women, so men who have transitioned to becoming women. They're saying, I am a woman. Leah Thomas has said, I'm a woman. I deserve to be in that mm-hmm. competition and to compete with other people of the gender that I identify with. So no, they're not satisfied at all. They see it as discriminatory. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the problems in this debate and with this issue is no matter what solution you come up with, you're sure to anger a really large group of people.
Mm-hmm. And what is the other side of the debate? The folks I read who are using Save Women's Sports or Title IX to argue on behalf of the ban.
Well, I think as I was saying before, there is a school of science that really strongly believes that these benefits of going through male puberty are lifelong and irreversible. And I think one of the issues is that for a long time we've been calling it men's sports and women's sports. And if you wanted to get scientific about it, what we were really talking about was competitions between people who get the benefits of male puberty and mm-hmm. people who don't have the benefits of male puberty. So, this was not simply competitions by that were delineated just by sort of our general understanding of what a woman is or what a man is and gender identity and all those issues. Right. And, and the people who are on the other side of the issue feel like you will ruin women's sports if you start allowing, a 22-year-old to take drugs for some period of time to suppress the male hormones and declare themselves a woman and to compete against women who have never been through male puberty.
So Matt, has Leah responded or reacted to this ruling?
She has not responded to me. I haven't seen any response from her. So that, as far as I know, no. But I haven't checked in the last 20 minutes. So
right.
It all can be very fluid.
Yeah. All right, Matt Fetterman, a complicated issue. Thank you for coming on today to try to explain that to us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
And coming up next, a unique opportunity. This is really special to get up close with Barack and Michelle Obama right here in the Bay Area. That's next on Getting Answers. All right, everybody, we'll be right back. Bay Area locals and visitors now have the chance to enjoy an intimate visit with Barack and Michelle Obama. The first couple's official portraits are now on display as part of an exhibit at San Francisco's DeYoung Museum. And joining us live is Timothy Anglin-Burgard, the curator in charge of American Art at Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. Anglin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, this is super exciting. These portraits were initially unveiled at the Smithsonian in 2018, and now they're on this nationwide tour. I don't know how many cities were chosen, to be on the tour, but this has got to be exciting for the DeYoung to be one of the museums hosting.
It's very exciting. When they were unveiled at the National Portrait Gallery in 2018, within 2 days, there were over 2,000 articles on the paintings. And before they traveled on the road, 4 million visitors viewed them at the National Portrait Gallery. In addition, there were only supposed to be 5 venues, but our director, Thomas Campbell, was able to secure the DeYoung Museum as 6 venues. So you are absolutely right. People are thrilled to be able to see them here in the Bay Area. And they've really become cultural icons and pilgrimage paintings.
Really, especially because they're sort of untraditional, right? Normally you see the president's portrait as being, I don't know, against a desk or at a desk or something really formal. Talk about President Obama here seen against a sea of jasmine and what that says about him and that choice.
By definition, these portraits have made history because they depict the first Black president and first Black first lady. But as you point out, they are radically transformative in the history of presidential portraits. Barack Obama, the pose in the chair, is actually inspired by a portrait of Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln is Obama's political hero because not only was he from Illinois, but he helped to unite a divided nation. And that was Obama's goal as well. The flowers are the most extraordinary part of the portrait. You see each one of them symbolizing part of his life. The white jasmine is his childhood in Hawaii and Indonesia. The chrysanthemums are Chicago. and the roses are for Washington, D.C., and then the African lilies are for his father, who was from Kenya. So they trace Obama's personal family heritage and also his geographic sort of traveling around the world, as it were.
Wow, I did not know that. That is so meaningful. What about First Lady Michelle Obama? She's seen almost like an angel in a flowing white dress, but it has a very modern and also down-to-earth feel. Talk about the process there in portraying her.
So Michelle Obama's portrait at first glance is much more austere. You don't have this profusion of flowers and foliage. You have an empty sort of celestial blue background. I think the most striking aspect is the dress, which was partly inspired by the famous Gee's Bend quilts made by women in Gee's Bend, Alabama, who were descended from the history of slavery. And so both Michelle Obama and Barack Obama had enslaved ancestors, Barack through his mother's side, very interestingly. And so there's that very subtle reference to Black history and Black culture. But the most striking aspect of Michelle's portrait, I think, is that her face is rendered in a kind of gray monochrome. It's not black and it's not white. It's somewhere in between. And that is the artist's intention. She said she wanted to decouple our preconceptions about color, somehow equating to race. And then, your point about an angel is really well put. Parker Curry, the little 2-year-old girl in the viral photograph who looked up at Michelle Obama and told her mother she looked like a queen. There are very subtle clues in each painting. In Barack Obama, his feet don't seem to rest on the ground. He seems to actually be slightly levitating. And Michelle Obama, that beautiful celestial blue sky-like background, I think, and the pose will remind a lot of visitors of portraits, or images, I should say, of the Virgin Mary from Renaissance art. So you have this very subtle idea about these pilgrimage paintings, about their spirituality, and that truly the Obamas represent a miracle by their achievements.
Yeah, look, this is a real educational and interactive exhibit. I know that there's also video at the exhibit that talks about how these portraits were made. We have 20 seconds, so I want you to tell me how long will the exhibit be there and how can folks get tickets so they can see the portraits?
The exhibit will be there through August 14th. It is free every Saturday. We have free Saturdays at the museum. You simply need to sign up for tickets because they are timed tickets. We've had over 5,000 visitors just this weekend for Juneteenth. So people need to get tickets in advance. It's been incredibly popular, but it will be free to everyone from the Bay Area on Saturdays.
All right. Thank you so much. Join us on Facebook Live to continue the chat. We'll be right back.
Thanks so much.
All right, Anglin, we still have a couple minutes to finish up on Facebook Live, even though we finished our TV portion of it. I wish I had time to get into the artists because they are really special and very important, especially given the broader context of there not really being too much Black representation in Western art history.
Absolutely. And both Kehinde Wiley, who painted Barack Obama, and Amy Sherald, who painted Michelle Obama, have spoken numerous times about their experience both as children and as art students going to museums, both in the United States and abroad, and hardly seeing any representation of Black Americans. And so both of them have stated very clearly and explicitly part of the goal of their work is to depict Black Americans, but also to empower them, to enfranchise them, to help them sort of find their own self-identity, their own self-determination, and to level the playing field in American museums where images of Black communities can be seen on the walls. Michelle Obama talked about this at the unveiling. She said, I would think about all the little girls who will come to this museum and look at the walls and see my portrait hanging there and think one day they could aspire to be like her, be the first lady or be some important influential person. And lo and behold, just a few months later, little 2-year-old Parker Curry did exactly that. And Michelle Obama said, I know how important this is because I was one of those little girls. And of course, the artists themselves had the same kinds of experiences.
Oh my goodness, I love it. We could have done a whole half-hour show with you, Anglin. Want to learn interesting stuff? Talk to the curator at the DeYoung Museum. Thank you so much. This is fabulous. deyoung.famsf.org. That's the website, so folks do check it out. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, really appreciate that. That was great. Oh, perfect. All right.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 seconds, 4,
Thanks for joining us. I'll see you back here tomorrow.